welcome to WagerTalk TV. It's finally here. We've been waiting for it for months. It's UFC 207 taking place right here in Las Vegas. T-Mobile Center, Friday night, December 30th. And what a card from top to bottom. I'm Scott Spreitzer. He's Matthew Holt. He is VP of Business Development at CG Technology Sportsbooks in Las Vegas. We're going to break down a couple of fights on this particular video and then the co-main events on another video, which includes, of course, Rousey Nunes. But let's jump into the betting handle first, Matt. About 6 days ago, you and I spoke doing our radio show, and I asked you, where are you guys at handle-wise? And you said it was pretty fast and furious for that, long before the actual fight card takes place. Are you still getting a lot of action? Do you foresee a record handle?
So I don't know that we're going to have a record handle in terms of dollars wagered, but I do think we're going to break the record for tickets written. So what we're seeing on this fight in comparison to what we see on some of the Conor McGregor fights is we're not seeing a lot of $10, $15, $20,000 bets, but we're seeing an unbelievable amount of $50 and $100 bets on both sides of this fight. And I'm pretty confident at this point with 29 line moves. Basically we're taking 100 bets on each fighter per day, which is just simply amazing, the amount of bets per day on each fighter that we're taking. So I think tickets written, we're going to shatter every record we've had for UFC. But unless we start getting some bigger mid to high five-figure bets, I'm not sure we hit that 1.5 million of the last Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz too.
That's cool for UFC though, because that means it's the growth as far as the popularity is concerned. I mean, it just continues to grow in leaps and bounds when you see a ton of tickets coming in,
yes,
even of the $50 to $100 variety. Let's jump into a couple of fights on the undercard. Neil Magny fighting former welterweight champ Johny Hendricks. Magny a slight favorite when we came down to the studios on a Wednesday afternoon over at CGT Sportsbooks. He shocked us both by losing to Lorenz Larkin at 202, and we saw what happened. Larkin attacked one of his legs, and he was done. I mean, in the first 45 seconds of the fight, it was called 4 minutes into the first round. Larkin wins, Magny loses. While Hendricks at the same time says that if he loses to Neil Magny, he goes, I might as well call it quits and retire. Which fighter has his way? Which fighter leaves the octagon with the win? And give us the reasons why you think they'll do so.
Well, first let's look at Johny Hendricks. 33 years old, lost 4 of his last 6 fights, including 2 straight fights. And if you look at his last fight, or 2 fights ago against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, while Neil Magny may not be as dynamic a striker as Wonderboy, they look the same. 6'4", really rail thin, really long, hit you from across the octagon. Johny Hendricks has had a lot of problems making weight. At 33, he cannot make 170 pounds. The problem for him with his body frame is he's too little to go up to 185. So if he can't make 170 successfully and comfortably, he's not going to be a successful fighter. And when you look back through the history of Johny Hendricks, a lot of the success he had at the time, when, as he fought for the title against George St. Pierre, then won the title against Robbie Lawler, a lot of his success was against wrestlers, Josh Koscheck, John Fitch, who at the time were the top-ranked contenders. Later on, what we've seen is Kevin Gastelum, Wonderboy Thompson, Robbie Lawler's, all stand-up dynamic strikers giving a lot of problems to Johny Hendricks. That's what Neil Magny does. And Neil Magny isn't only a dynamic striker on his feet, he gets better as the fight goes on, where Johny Hendricks late in his career seems to fade as the fight goes on. I think if you like Johny Hendricks, you have to play him early. Look, Neil Magny, 29 years old, has won 10 of his last 12. But the 2 losses, the one you referenced to Lorenz Larkin and the Damian Maia loss, they both got Magny early. Sure. You need to go in there and get Neil Magny early, because as the fight goes on, he's going to get stronger. As we saw against Hector Lombard, who had Neil Magny dead to rights first round, Magny came back and knocked him out in the second round. As good as it gets in the division. So I think this is kind of a correlated parlay. If you like Johny Hendricks, go ahead and play the under 1.5 rounds in this fight at a plus money as well. Where if you like Neil Magny, you should probably take the over, because he's probably going to have to fight through some hairy situations holding off Hendricks early and rally late to win the second and third round.
Another fight so-called on the undercard is Dillashaw taking on John Lineker, and the winner of this bantamweight fight, there's a good shot that they're going to have a title match next. It's not guaranteed. We've heard a lot of weird talking going on behind the scenes on whether one of these guys will get a championship fight or not. Dillashaw has just 1 loss over the last 3 years. Lineker, he's red hot. He's won 6 straight. Dillashaw opened a $2 favorite at CGT. He's now minus 240. Got a question for you here, because on Tuesday, I saw you tweet out that your second biggest liability on the card is Lineker, but yet that line continues to go up the other way.
So interestingly enough, look, it's not a coincidence that the co-main event is a bantamweight title shot, and then the key, undercard here is a bantamweight #1 contender fight. So I do believe that the winner of this will get the next title shot. TJ Dillashaw, the former champion who lost the title to Dominick Cruz. Interestingly enough, we opened this line 200 because I personally, I set these numbers and I like John Lineker. But the market started shifting dramatically to TJ Dillashaw, and our early action also went to Dillashaw, and I went, oh, well, maybe we were wrong on the $2. But then all of a sudden what we saw the last few days is a wave of John Lineker action. And John Lineker was our biggest liability on the card, bigger than Ronda Rousey, bigger than Dominick Cruz or Cody Garbrandt. We actually need Dominick Cruz right now, but bigger than those two fights. Because when you add in that plus $2 price and people are betting, 4, 5, 6,000 at a pop, that adds up really quick. A lot of money on John Lineker the last few days. And while that line's creeped down, we've also heard that market's a lot of people are taking a lot of TJ Dillashaw money. So look, we expect that we'll probably see a lot of Dillashaw money, and you don't want to drop that price too low if there's Dillashaw money out there. So we feel confident if we drop the number low enough, we know we can get Dillashaw money because we know it's out there. But a lot of support for the underdog here, and for good reason. John Lineker is another one of those guys whose biggest, his biggest opponent's always been the scale. Sure. He had a lot of trouble making weight, but he's the best puncher in the bantamweight division, and people love that guy who has that puncher's chance, one-punch KO power. I'm not sure he gets the job done here. I don't really have a pick in this fight. I think at that price, I would take John Lineker too. But it's a really interesting fight.
It's a great explanation as to why the price is where it is, despite having that liability on Lineker. By the way, speaking of making weight, it's one of the reasons I joined WagerTalk. There's no weight limit. We set that in the contract right away. Hey, don't forget, we have a radio show that we do every Thursday on SB Nation Radio. It's heard in about 120 cities around the country, and we're going to break down a lot of fights from UFC 207 on Thursday. It's 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Time live. It'll be archived at WagerTalk.com, archived at SBNationRadio.com a couple of hours after the show finishes. We've got Fox Sports 1's John Anik coming on the show. We got Lou of Gamblu.com fame who's going to come on and give his picks. So I have a lot of picks, a lot more to talk about on that particular radio show. Also, don't forget Weekend All Access with your favorite capper, $69. Also, get a $50 sign-up bonus after your first purchase of $12 or more at WagerTalk.com. He's Matt, I'm Scott. Don't forget to check out our video with the co-main events. That's up next. WagerTalk TV.